Hey there, and thanks for joining us for The Weekly Grind, a podcast where we work out the topics that shape and influence the culture, community, and church of today from a biblical perspective. My name's Ben, and here today with me is Jon Kundo. He joins us on The Weekly Grind as part 2 of our Fighting for the Family podcast. Jon shares with us how he and his wife, Wendy, were able to keep Christ and Christ's bride, the church, central to their 3 kids' upbringing, and how they are now owning their own faith and walk with Christ. So this is The Weekly Grind, and this is Fighting for the Family, Part 2. All right, well, we are going a little rogue here today because to my left is not Pastor Chip Bullock, but my dear friend, Jon Kundo. So welcome to The Weekly Grind.
Well, thank you.
I also was thinking before we started the podcast that you might be the first person on the podcast that doesn't drink coffee.
Yes.
So if we maybe changed it to the Weekly Steep or something, because you are you're a tea drinker.
I am a tea drinker. Yes.
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate that.
That's okay though.
That's good. Yeah, but
coffee's just not something I've just acquired quite yet.
That's okay. Maybe when you grow up or get older.
Yes. True.
Someday. Hey, I'd noticed too, you're not an Iowa or St. Louis guy, so we can move these out of the way.
Yeah, we can get rid of those.
I'm thinking, if we can switch some stuff around.
Yes, the helmet I would put up would probably, a lot of people would not like that either, but but we won't go there.
Probably not. No, not.
We did win last night. Go Blue.
Michigan Wolverines. Yeah. Anyways, we won't get into that. That's not what this is about.
No, it's not.
Hey, so last week Pastor Chip and I did a podcast, kind of a spinoff of the sermon series that we're going through right now, A Good Fight. And so our podcast was Fighting for the Family. And we shared a lot of just practical ways to how do you love your kids, and how do you connect with your kids? Are you intentional? Are you authentic? Do they see you and your spouse and just the relationship that you have? Because that really feeds into the way that they understand and things that they might aspire to want to have in a future spouse. And so we kind of tackled a lot of different things, and one of the things that you and I share is 6 a.m. Tuesday mornings, we have a Bible study. In the last couple of months or so, we've been just really, really diving into the past Sunday's sermon. And so out of that, a conversation with you you shared a lot in our morning study, just your road through parenting and being a husband, being a father. And so I kind of reached out to you and I'm like, hey, Jon, would you mind coming on and just sharing a little bit about your story and your journey? We have a lot of young families here in the church and that listen. And so I just really think this will be beneficial for not just me. A lot of this is, I'm going to eat a lot of this up today, but as well as young families that have, they're kind of where Pastor Chip's at. They've got he has a son in 7th grade, and that before you know it, he'll be in high school, and 3 more kids after that. But then also you have people my age that are, I've got a little 1-year-old at home, and I'm already starting to think of these things.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to bring you on, just have a conversation, and then just to share a little bit about your story.
Yeah,
some
encouragement. Because it is a huge fight, man. It really is, and you have to stay focused. And a lot of times it's intentional. And when you're going through the chaos of just everything going on, it's tough. But to stay true and stay focused is key. And you do get through it. It does.
That's good to know.
I was sharing with you that that notion that as my kids are reaching into adulthood and stuff, that parenting ceases or slows down some, and it doesn't. I shared with you that Wendy and I were talking, and I think we parent now more than we ever have.
Yeah,
but it's in a different way, though.
Yeah, you're not changing poop diapers
I'm
like
not,
I am.
I'm
right
not
now.
physically exhausted at the end of the day. I'm not chasing anybody around,
but
mentally I'm exhausted a lot. But no, it's a lot of the same things, and a lot of that what you've talked about is still fighting that fight.
So you and your wife Wendy.
Yes.
Yeah, you and she's from Liberty Center.
She is. She is the reason that we are here and have been, and have raised my kids in
That's God's country.
In the Midwest, Northwest Ohio, and Henry County.
Yeah.
So,
so John, just share a little bit. Where are you from?
I'm originally from Kalamazoo, Michigan. My dad was in the military, so we grew up all over. I was able to spend my junior high and high school years in Virginia Beach, and then did do school there, and then finished up at Western, and then kind of got a job that brought me down here 20-some years ago. Met Wendy, fell in love with her, and decided this was a good place to settle down and raise a family. Yeah. So.
First comes love, second comes marriage, and then children. Yeah. Right? And so you have 3 children?
I do. I have 3. My oldest is Olivia, and she is finishing up at Cedarville. She is a middle school education major, doing her student teaching right now. Is going to first weekend in May, graduate, second weekend get married, third weekend move to St. Louis.
Okay. I remind my wife all the time, I think the educational field is a great... it's a great parenting job to have. I love it because you have a 180-day school year, and then you have snow days, and so as you're rearing children, and you know this because Wendy's a librarian at the
school.
Was
nice. We never had to worry about that juggling kids.
Yeah.
If they didn't go, she didn't go.
Good for Olivia.
So it was good. Cool. Yep, Olivia, and then Weston is my freshman. He's at Indiana Wesleyan. He did look at Cedarville, but decided not to. Went there, so kind of a little separation there. Okay. But and then Sophie is youngest, and she's still in school as a junior at Liberty Center.
Yeah. And so so you've got 3 children. Are they all the same? Or are they act a little different?
Oh, they're so different, man. It's and that's the thing with parenting that you think it with one, you try it, and it just doesn't work with the other one, and it's amazing. Same same school, same churches, same family, everything, and yet they can be so different. Yeah. But I think that's the beauty of it too.
Yeah, and I think one of the things though that is consistent with rearing children from just everything that I've grown to understand is principles. Yeah, principles. Disciplines, what you value as a family. I think the beauty of our personalities is what makes family so fun and interesting. But on the same side, the disciplines, the things that ground us. Correct. What are the things that have grounded you guys over the years, and what are the ways that you've taken to heart those things, instilled them on your children, and just share with us a little bit.
Yeah, well, I want to just first start off, though, and say, far from perfect. And, and as I'm going through this process, with you inviting me on this, I had to kind of chuckle because I can look back at so many times that if I would ever sit here doing a podcast on raising kids, I would laugh and be like, "Oh no, it's out of control. Who would I give advice to?" So, but a lot of it is setting up early, kind of those principles and following through. And one of the things we talked about with Wendy was her and I trying to be on the same page. And we did so much. There were so many evenings, so many nights that we would just be struggling with something and saying, are we doing this right? What's going on? And whatever we did, we worked together and made sure that we were doing it right or wrong, that we were still together and combined, and that was important. But, and just the structure of it, we gave our kids our kids would say, "Oh, you guys were pretty strict and disciplined." But we, as Pastor Chip said, on the strict, on the discipline, and on the love side of it, it was important. We can talk into different things like structure and stuff, but it was so. And to stay the course, and the toughest things that we talked about is if you would always throw something out. Well, if you do this, these are going to be the ramifications for it, and then you had to stick with it.
Oh, I know.
And that was just terrible. You talked about times that I'd sit down and we'd be just starting a meal or just into a movie starting or whatever, and have the popcorn, and then they do something that they weren't supposed to, and the consequence of that was we'd all get up and even walk out of the theater. I'm like, hey, I wanted to see that movie, and I just paid a whole lot of money for it too. But you had to follow through on that, and so the kids just knew that, and that was a big thing we learned early on. And
one of the things that they know early on too is that you're I mean, you guys, you're people of your word. You do what you say you'll do. And I was thinking about you sharing that. And one of the things early on in ministry they share is do what you say you will do.
Correct.
If you commit to someone, if you make a promise or make a commitment, do what you say you'll do, because your word carries a lot of value and a lot of weight, and it carries your integrity.
It does
when you follow through with that. And I think too, as parents, at me being very early on into this, I can already see how he knows that I tell him no, and he's already pushing boundaries.
Yes.
And so really being particular on, how am I trying to rear him and guide him? And I can imagine it only gets a little more complex as they learn to understand
they do.
and push boundaries and get creative.
And to say those that know us, Wendy is much more laid back, and I tend to react a little more and throw things out, and I would throw something out, and I would be like cringe and be like, oh, Wendy's like, oh, you didn't just say that, because now we have to follow through and that happens. So, but we would, and it was always funny. So we were always keeping us in check, and that also helped me too, on being a little slow to react.
So we have, even through the elementary years and middle school years. I mean, middle school's a little gray, but they're safe and sound in your home. I mean, one of the things about my son right now is he's in his crib every night, and I can, and I have to imagine that once you start to let the leash out a little bit. I mean, what's that like, and what are some of the new trials and the new things as they enter into high school?
Correct. It is. Obviously it's scary, and we have just less control over that. And when that happens, you have to trust kind of what you've instilled with them, and that's a big part of it. I mean, because you have to let them go. You have to let them have those abilities. But we also talk too, and so much of our life that we love our kids and we want the best for them. And I'm always that fun dad that always wants that Disney day experience or whatever. But, in life, what we've learned, though, too, is, the times that we go through trials, that we go through tribulations, that those are the ones that build us. Those are the characters that we have. We grow closer to Christ in those times. And yet we protect our kids from that, And so, that was one thing, too. Not that we, wanted that for them, and pushed them out for that. But just it helped us knowing that that's, and if they were true to who they were, and it helped that Olivia, my oldest, was an extreme rule follower, and so and now, but like you said, with the kids being so different. The other one's not as much as a strict rule follower that she was, and had to kind of go their own way on those things. So
and I I loved what you shared about your oldest and Olivia, and just the just her journey out of high school into college. So share a little bit. I mean, let's move from the abstract, and just move into just some real world examples of how this was lived out.
Yeah, that's we're starting to see, her, well, obviously well into adulthood and stuff on that, and kind of the things going on. And, I kind of shared with Olivia is she found running in junior high and started out as a pretty decent runner and put a lot of work into it. And through that, she became quite an accomplished runner. And she was also a pretty accomplished student. I mean, she worked really hard for that. So when we were in high school, she started looking for colleges. And
time out. When you say accomplished runner, I mean, she's exceptional. What are some of the things that she's achieved? Well, because I know you're not going to come out and say it, but she really is.
She was. She was on it's the state championship cross country team, multiple years, and she had gone individually through track 4 years to state, and so basically every year, every season, track and cross country, she had the opportunity to go down to state, and then just progress as she got faster and stronger on that. So that was neat. So
I guess my thought in making that point is because it's really easy for someone at that age for their identity to get wrapped up in that.
Correct.
And we have a lot of, like I said, families that are on maybe this side of high school. Correct. With their children, that what are they prioritizing and what are they starting to emphasize to their kids and so, anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off there,
well,
but
I think we better step back a little bit, talk about kind of what we wanted out of Olivia and our expectations for her.
Yeah,
and I think that started out, and as corny as this says, and everyone says, well, you should have a mission statement for your family. But we did for the raising the kids, what we wanted that, and and we were pretty intentional on that one, and it was simply we wanted God-fearing kids that grew to, as adults, that grew to love God and love others. And that was our focus point. So if we just kept reminding ourselves, that's what we wanted to. And we had house rules and stuff that were, little things like, work first to play, and then, be kind and try your best. So, we encouraged them. And activities are great, and we did things. But, a lot of it was still shaping of who they did and the priorities in our lives. And, so I think that helped shape it a lot. We talked about, Sunday mornings and Wednesday evenings that was for church. And as all of my kids have done sports other than, just running and stuff, but with basketball and soccer and stuff, travel teams and AAU teams and stuff that had those, conflicts. But to us, it wasn't a conflict because it's just what we did as a family. Yeah. So kind of knowing the basis of that, but then also that she found this love of running. Yeah. And so
now it's time to put it to the test to do what you say you will do.
Exactly. So exactly. So we're going through this and so she's running and running well and as a dad, I'm a proud dad. Yeah. And that's an issue though too, is having too much pride in your kids and getting wrapped up into that. But it was neat. It was exciting. So early on, she had I'd laugh because I thought at one time she wanted to look at every school in Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, and thought that a school visit to every one of them was needed. And I said, no, let's narrow this down. Her sophomore year, I'm like, this is just too much. So we looked at a few schools, and she said, hey, I want to go to a Christian college, and that was important to her. I think a lot of things she did when she was younger, she felt different, and she was okay with it. But she said, I want to go to a school that I'm more like everyone than I'm different. And so that really, she enjoyed that part of it. And, of all my kids, I felt that she would be good at a secular school because she had done a lot with FCA and a lot of outreach and that. But, her look on it was, I want to grow. I want to spend those 4 years and just really grow in Christ more. And then have even more that I can offer, and so we thought that was a neat plan. So she and liked the coach, and it was a pretty good competitive program. So she had signed early and committed, and then she continued to run faster and get faster, and so through this process, got the attention of other schools. And then so she started getting some calls from, we called it the MAC week. She ran out and ran really fast, and a bunch of MAC schools called. And then next week she ran even faster, and then we had other schools call, and, she was getting, Big Ten calls and everything. So it was kind of exciting at the time. But she really kept to her commitment, and she said...
Did U of M call?
They did not.
Okay, because they
have an amazing program. So no. Early on, she used to tell people, she's like, I'm either going to go to Cedarville or Michigan. I'm like, okay, most conservative, most liberal, but she soon realized, a lot of that was not going to be the case. But no, they
I was
never
wondering for your
call.
sake if Michigan.
No, one night it was pretty fun, and she'll be embarrassed that I tell you this, but.
It's just us.
This is. But, South Carolina, this coach had called. And she came down and, she would take these phone calls up in her room and come down or whatever. And she said, yeah, some school in South Carolina called. And Weston's like, well, what school? Thinking, she's like, South Carolina. He's like, Olivia, that's an SEC school, and he's telling her this, and she didn't have a clue. She's like, oh, okay. She goes, yeah, there was pretty fast times that, coach was talking about on the team and everything, but so it was just kind of funny. And she's like, yeah, I don't think I'm interested. But so he was like, that's kind of, I wish they would call me, but through this process though, she really felt that God's calling was still at Cedarville, and that she made a commitment to coach. And so I thought that was pretty and pretty neat, and that she honored that, and then she started practice and everything, and we were pretty impressed with Coach. But from day one, he really preached that he wanted them to find their identity in Christ, and not running, not in who they are, as a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a daughter or anything, but yet really find her true identity in Christ, and we always thought that was neat, and she was really engaged in this whole process and stuff. So as she's going through, she has an incredible freshman year. And she goes out, and their cross country team does well, and they go to nationals, and then she starts their indoor season. They do really well. They go to nationals then in the in the 800, and so they ended up getting third in nationals and stuff. Cool. And so here we are, 2 seasons in, and she's already been to nationals twice and everything. Yeah. And at this time, she's labeled an All-American, and she wins the NCAA Division II Freshman of the Year award. So we're like, wow, this is really cool. Neat. And I said, well, where's this going? And then, to be honest, I struggled. And I said, well, maybe she should have gone to these other schools. So I'm like, well, if you do this, what are you looking to maybe transfer? You know what I mean? And she's like, Dad, no, this is my home. I love it here, And so I'm like, okay. And so she goes out in outdoor track season. She gets injured. And I remember the call from Wendy, because I'm in Chicago with Weston at a soccer tournament, and she goes, Olivia's got this injury. And I'm like, okay, well, I've never heard of that. And she's like, yeah, I'm kind of a little concerned on this. This could be a injury she has to deal with forever. And I was like, oh, no, this can't be. She's going to be healed up or whatever. She didn't tear an ACU or ACL or anything. And they're like, no, that's, it's this. And so I'm like, well, Olivia's a hard worker. She'll get through this. And so she didn't run in the rest of the track season, and came home and really conditioned, and was really struggling and trying her conditioning and everything, and working really hard, and just not able to. This injury just kept coming back. Mm-hmm. And so we went through, kind of fast forward through this 2 years of a lot of specialists, a lot of doctors trying everything to do this, and she'd work, and she'd do everything she needed on the rehab and stuff, and not just able to run. But then, so it was her summer. Let's fast forward before her junior year, and she spent the whole summer training. She worked during the day. It would come home and just every night work out and run, and that was basically her life. I mean, she did those two things. But through this process, we were going down to the first meet of the year, the cross country meet, and I said, hi, Olivia, how you doing? And she's like, I'm about 95%. And then she got hurt in that first race again. And it set her back the junior year. So going into it, and so she's staying. But through this whole time, as frustrating as that was for her, she took Coach's words to heart and truly did find that her identity was in Christ. Mm-hmm. And that this was just an obstacle or God's direction and plan for other things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She embraced her community. Yeah. She embraced her school. She loved the school. She loved her program. She dove into being a student. She dove into being a friend. She dove into being an assistant coach, and took on those roles and really embraced that. And, as a sister, to her siblings and everything and stuff. So it was neat to see her do these other things, and then do them well. And then started running back over the summer and said, really, I'm going to make one more run on it. And, it was kind of neat. 2 things on this is the coach honored her scholarship this whole time. And that's not heard of in running. There's very few scholarships, and they're limited, and they're performance based, and if you're not running, and he honored that, and that was very appreciative for us, and she did a lot for the team, but it was that, and that she wanted to give it one more shot. Because she said she really wanted to run for the team and felt that, with what Coach had done for her, that she wanted to do that again. So it's kind of neat, man. So she worked out all summer again, worked out, and got back, and she's running. She shook a lot of rust off, but her cross-country season, she was barely, on the B team, and she worked her way up to a pretty good spot on the top 7. And then as track season comes in, she's running not quite at her fastest times, but she's getting close, and she's really it's neat to see that. So to see her focus on God and really drive that, and her faith has grown so much through this time period. It's been amazing. So. That's a kind of a success story through a lot of trial and a lot of pain, but
I think a lot of that is just rooted in the framework of that mission statement and some of the things that she saw modeled and prioritized at a young age that she's now living in and now making her own. Yeah, is owning it herself. So you have Weston.
I have Weston, yes.
The Indiana Wesleyan University.
Yes, it is. So
I appreciate it. I like it.
Yes. No, and he actually has loved it. I was a little nervous sending him away. He didn't
college
really know
athlete.
What he wanted. So he's a runner too. He had his little talking to with his sister, but throughout the later part of his high school thing, he realized that running, he was pretty good at it, and then actually started really enjoying it and loving it. And so and I told him when he started looking for schools, he wanted to go to Christian school like his sister. And I said, well, okay, well, the price tags on that. And, we're real practical with our kids, and we break everything down. And so in doing that, he knew that he was going to have to work hard, both through academics and athletics and stuff to make it happen. And he did. I'm really proud of him. And he's just loving the experience and everything that he has. Yeah.
And you got a call from him a little bit ago.
I did. It was a call on a Thursday. And when you're a freshman from college that's away calls you and says, "Mom, Dad, you never believe what I did last night." I was like, "Whoa," kind of stepped back and said, "Okay, nah, I really don't," And he's already he's done some pretty fun things.
Cool.
But he said, one of the churches, the church I'm going to, I love it, but they had a need for Wednesday night helpers to be a co-leader for 4th and 5th grade boys Wednesday night program. Yeah. So I went ahead and signed up, and I'm helping them on Wednesday nights. And what's kind of neat on that is being a student athlete. It is a lot of time, a whole lot of time, and it was just kind of neat for him to give up that little bit of time, free time that he had. There's something like that. Just not asked by his coach, not asked by but something that he wanted, he saw a need of and wanted to, and thought he could really help and serve in that capacity.
Yeah, that's neat. So, good for him.
It was a pretty neat story.
Pouring it into others already.
Yeah, you see that, and he's such a kind-hearted. Yeah. I do. So it's kind of neat to see him, and I feel that God's really kind of blessed him and given him. And some talent there and some patience there. He has his mother's laid backness. Okay. So it's very nothing really flusters him too bad.
So I have to laugh because we had lunch together Sunday.
Yes.
And so I'm asking Sophie, your youngest, what she's up to and what she's thinking.
And we preface this by how all different all of our kids are, but she is a mini me, so I can't say too much.
But yeah, she's pretty adamant on what she's ready to do next, and because I'm like, hey, what you thinking? What kind of
she's all heart
stuff? Yeah, I'm going in the mission field for a year, and not in the United States.
Yeah, yes, no, and hers was, and we say, okay, Sophie, there's a plan, and God's got a plan. I'm like, okay, honey, how about a skill set? How about, let's talk about this. How about, a nursing degree or something to go into this? And no, she's following her heart and doing that.
And I think as she pours that out to God, and I think he'll begin to, to make that clear of kind of maybe the direction, because she is a junior.
She is a junior, yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, so she's got a little bit of time
fun,
on that,
yeah.
and and it's
Good.
so it's just going to see.
Yeah.
It's going to test because there's a lot of faith in that, and,
Yeah.
and she's got that, and just wants to love and serve others.
So you're on the, I call it the back nine of parenting with them in your home.
Correct.
Because, I mean, like my parents they've just taken on a new role. You never quit
Yes.
parenting.
No.
But as far as them being, and what I mean by that is they're beginning to make their faith their own if they haven't already. And you're able to begin, you and Wendy have started to see the fruit
Yes.
of your labor, of your prayers, of your determination and desire for God to work in their lives. And so I just kind of wanted to kind of keep this open-ended.
Yeah.
Just some takeaways for parents that are kind of behind you as far as seasons of life and where they're at with their children in rearing them and bringing them up. Any advice?
Besides, fight the fight and stay the course, and pray a lot and know that you're not perfect, and let the kids see that and experience that and be authentic. And once again, being authentic and that you don't always get it right. It's funny. I called, when you said, hey, we're going to do this, I called Olivia, texted her and said, Olivia, I said, hey, give me some feedback on this, because one thing we do in our family is we give pretty honest feedback. Sophie roasts us flat out. And
she's Ohio State fan too.
She lets us know. She's like, I really don't even follow it much, but I just know that my team beats Dad's team all the time. So I was like, all right, great.
But Olivia, maybe
Olivia, this is where Olivia's kind-heartedness sometimes. When she was younger, she liked both because she just wanted to be a pleaser.
Yeah.
And I said, honey, there's some things in life you just one or the other. You just can't be both. And so she picked Michigan and continued to be my good kid. But more on a serious note, there's, to stay the course on discipline, and even though it's hard, it really is. And it's hard. It's hard to see your kids go through that. It's hard to, if we really want our kids to be a follower of Christ and do that, they don't live in the world. And yet they do, and so there's a lot of, a lot of tears, a lot of tough things, but just to say that, hey, that you're there, that you just love them, and the discipline of it is so true of it, is to say that. So I think those are some of the biggest takeaways that I would have. That.
So I think one of the things that I hear often is, my kid just doesn't show an interest in church. Yeah. And kind of my thought was like, well, you make them brush their teeth and clean their room, and if this is so, like, how do you? And that's me being very naive as a young parent. But how do you? What about like resistance and those kind of things where like, listen, you're just gonna have to trust me. Like, this is what's best for you.
Correct. And it's funny because I had the same conversation with Wendy, saying, hey, what advice would you give? And we were very structured on our Sundays. That's just what we did. Wednesday evenings, and the kids knew it. But her comment on that was she wished she would have explained it more, and not for our kids, because our kids were okay with it. And we kind of monitor that. Obviously, rule follower Olivia, and please or Weston, and then Sophie was just, hey, I get dragged along anyway, so I'm going. So, but really, because they can see where kids would push back on that, and saying, there's so many rules here. I don't know if that what it means to be a Christian, then and luckily we never had that, but I think it was kind of the openness that we had. And where they saw from us that, it wasn't just we go to church because we have to. We go to church because we wanted to, and kind of spread it. And we also had them also want to have their own relationship with God. And then once again, not of doing it. So and it's kind of tough because, but making it kind of what you guys do and such a big part of your lives that. But I would think just explaining it and just loving on them and explaining that that's, and
And it's not too late. I mean, if as far as establishing those disciplines, maybe. I mean, if you're, if you're listening and you think, hey, well, we already have these trends and these,
right.
like, it's not too late, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
Because that goes back to the authenticity,
correct.
and that communication and saying, hey, listen, we feel like this needs to be our priorities,
mm-hmm.
and so yeah, it's not too late. If you feel like we want to fine tune some of those disciplines, but
well, and you kind of change everything as going along too,
yeah.
and there's just different things that you just have to adapt. But
yeah.
but if you stay core to the principles of of who you are and what you want out of your kids, it's
cool. Well, thanks for coming on today.
Hey,
I appreciate it.
Not a problem. We didn't even talk about the hall cans or anything.
Oh, I know.
But no, that's.
If you see John around, you got to ask about the hall cans. But
no, actually, that's a better story for Weston. Okay. He'll be really embarrassed next time he's home. So.
But he's got him now. So that's
he has him. Yes, exactly.
So, all right. Well, we'll leave that on a little cliffhanger note, and we'll see. So, well, thanks for joining us. And authenticity, being intentional,
absolutely,
being disciplined is the way to go. Well, hey, thanks for engaging with us in this week's episode of The Weekly Grind as we tackle the topics of today from a biblical perspective. If you found today's topic or any episode valuable to you and your growth, it'd mean a lot to us if you would leave us a comment. And don't forget to subscribe to stay caught up on every episode of The Weekly Grind podcast. Thanks so much, and we will see you next time.